How would I rebuild my wholesale business if I was starting from zero? No skills, no money, no leads. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact steps that I would take to get my first deal again. No fluff, no theory, just what's actually going to get you the results. Let's jump into it. So again, in this video, I am starting from nothing. I don't know anything about wholesaling. I don't know anything about real estate. So whenever I do anything new, I always set a goal to it. And our goal for this is going to be get a closed deal. Close being the key word here. A lot of people can get contracts, but they don't know how to close it, and closing is when we get paid. So getting closed deals is going to be the most important. You got to keep your eye on the prize there, and just avoid all the fluff. You're going to be watching a lot of stuff, a lot of content to get going. You're going to see people talking about fancy softwares, list providers, skiptures, but none of that matters other than getting a deal closed. So if you're finding yourself getting distracted, make sure you turn all that stuff off and go back to that deal finding mode, which we'll talk about in a second. The other thing I like to do is go over the mindset. The mindset you should have is if it doesn't help you close deals, it doesn't get built. Again, there's going to be a lot of distractions. You're going to watch a lot of people talking about different marketing providers. Let me scroll up there so you can see that. You're going to be, hearing people talk about different marketing providers, list sources, fancy softwares. But the mindset you have to take is if it doesn't help me close a deal, it doesn't get built yet. Most wholesalers overbuild their systems and they don't even need or use fancy softwares, complicated processes. But none of that matters is if you're not doing the basics correctly. So keep it simple, focus on getting deals done, and you'll surely win that way. So again, nothing else matters but getting the deal. So now that we got our goal and our mindset, we'll talk about the next important thing, in my opinion, is the skill. Again, you're starting from zero here. So for me, whenever I do anything new, I always become obsessive with acquiring knowledge as quick as possible. I do this by listening to podcasts during every free second I have, watching YouTube videos, joining Facebook groups, school communities, Reddit groups, just to kind of see what people are talking about and ultimately to network as well. And one of the last things that I think a lot of people skip out is attending local meetups and shaking hands. That's going to be the quickest way for you to cut down your learning curve. So again, just to recap on that, we just need to absorb ourselves. And how do we do that? Sorry, I need this stuff organized. This is my OCD in me. Content, YouTube, podcasts, however you get your content, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, whatever it is. Just absorb yourself in that industry. Everything else is a distraction. Right now, you're in a learning phase, and you need to just cut that learning curve down. I also would suggest, Facebook groups. So going on there and searching your area. So for me, it'd be, I live in Austin, Texas, is going to be, real estate investors, Austin, Texas. If you go to Facebook and search that, you're going to find a bunch of communities. You'll be able to see who's doing deals, who's not. And then even further, which I think is underrated, going into school, finding communities. And this is the last one. I think this is a real sleeper that a lot of people miss on is Reddit. Reddit's pretty popular. There's a lot of people asking questions. There's a lot of experienced people in there, but also people trying to get your first deal like yourself. So if you can find some people that are at zero and have like an accountability friend that push each other forward, that could be huge. And then again, as I mentioned, one of the most slept on things is attend local meetups. And this is going to be super important for kind of the strategy I'm going to talk about, which kind of leads me into the next point on how to get a deal. So for me as the deal, I am going to play deal connector. When you're starting from zero, you don't need deals first. You need buyers, in my opinion. This may be controversial. Some people may say otherwise, but I think you reverse engineer this. So, and this is where your network comes into play. At local meetups and investor groups, you're going to be very intentional with identify who you're talking to, because there's going to be a hodgepodge of people. There's going to be investors, there's going to be wholesalers, and you need to know who's who, right? Because we're basically right now, we're trying to identify our buyers, so that we can go ahead and source deals. We're going to be playing that deal connector, so that we can go ahead and find deals and give it to that investor to buy, and then we can make that money on the sale. So this is going to be the fastest way to do this. And also, you're going out into these events and you're going to be asking simple questions. What areas are you buying? What was your price range, your conditions, your cash or financing? And once you know someone's buy box, finding the deal becomes way easier because now you're hunting for a target versus just guessing. So early on, we are going to be playing deal connector and trying to find deals that match our buy box for our buyers. So going to meetups, talking to cash buyers. You could pull a list for cash buyers. Facebook groups, there's going to be cash buyers on there as well. We just need to find all of our information, collect their buy boxes, save their information. You do it on a Google Sheet, do it on your cell phone to start with, but save that information so you know when you do find a deal, who you can give it to. So that is going to be deal connectors for the buyer. The second step, I'm going to do deal connector property. So once we know our buyers and what they're looking for, it's now time to go find a property. So you got two ways to do this. First, and these are going to be in no particular order. In no particular order, I would actually do these in tandem. One is going to be doing the JV route. Again, those communities I mentioned, your Facebook communities, your Reddits, there's going to be a lot of people who are starting out. And I'm telling you, if you're posting your deals on Facebook Marketplace, Facebook wholesale pages, Reddit groups, you're probably struggling to sell that property. You may not know what you're doing. That's going to be the perfect person for you to work with. And that way you can come in and leverage your buyers list. Hey, I do have buyers in that area for your property. Do you want a JV? Typically JVs are going to be 50-50s. So go ahead and negotiate with that. And then once you sell the property, you get the funds to ideally go start up your marketing. So JV route is going to be the first one. Again, post in Facebook groups. You don't necessarily have to post. You can just go in there and look. If people are posting their properties that they're wholesaling on Facebook groups, they're usually struggling, don't have a strong buyers list, and that's where you can come in. Again, it's providing value is what you're doing here. And also just check out Facebook Marketplace. I know a few people that have gotten deals off Facebook Marketplace, surprisingly. I wouldn't have thought so, but there's been, some for sale by owner stuff on there, but also there's been some wholesalers that are struggling that posted on there thinking that we'll get it sold. Again, come in with your expertise, your buyers list, and that's how you provide value to another wholesaler. The second option is going to be doing Zillow. And then Zillow, we're going to be doing the for sale by owners. Because again, the easiest, and the reason I'm giving you these two methods, JVs and Zillow, it's a lot easier than doing your own marketing and starting from zero, right? If you're doing cold call, I'm calling people, hey, do you want to sell your property? That's going to take 60, 90 days for them to be ready. If I'm doing inbound lead, it is a little bit better, but the best way to find people who are interested in selling is finding people who already have it listed or under contract. JVs have it under contract. Zillow has it listed. So for Zillow, quick and easy way, what you could do. I'm going to start in my local market, Austin, Texas. There's a few things you could do. You can filter for, days on market, and then just go ahead and call older properties. But I think, again, the easiest way, I go for owner posted. You can filter for coming through soon, all that good stuff. Now you can see right here. These are all the properties in my market that are listed for sale by owner. And it could be for sale by owner for a few reasons. It could be an investor who could be savvy and understands. Could be some people who got burnt by realtors that don't want to work with the realtor, which is, it happens. There's a lot of people that come to us that say, hey, I just don't want to work with a realtor. I'd rather just get this done quick and easy. So now you can click on some of these properties and see what's going on, right? All right, here's a 3-3. You could already tell, this thing's dated. It's old. It needs some work. It's overgrown. 3-3, and let me guess, it's been 135 days. So for sale by owner, it's been on the market for 135 days. I know in my days in market in Austin, it is a little bit high right now, but I know it's nowhere near 135. So this person, is probably overpriced and doesn't know what they're doing. So you can come to this person, negotiate with them. If you have a buyer, great. Now you can kind of back into this. You could even talk with your buyers if you have that transparency and trust with them of, hey, what would you offer on something like this? So that you know what you can go and get that property for. Clicking on a few more here. That may be some land. All right, this one's pretty clean, done up. So, and again, when you look at these properties, you have to understand how you're going to exit, which is super important when you're talking with your buyers. Are they a cash buyer looking for flips? Or are they looking for someone that's looking for rentals? This one doesn't really need much work. So unless we can get this at a smoking hot price, it's going to be someone that's going to take this down to do a rental property for this. And this to me even screams Airbnb. So it may even be an Airbnb at the moment. 87 days, it's kind of high days on market. One more property, 559.32. All right, this one's perfect. You can see, roof's old, it's discolored. You got the siding, all janky. The driveway is beat up, and they don't even show any pictures of the inside. So that tells you the story right there. So this one, again, you can come in here and flip it. But one thing that I do notice is like back here, you can see there's some like newer houses. So this area is being gentrified. I know this area too, and it is being gentrified, like right there, right? That's a nice property. So this is probably more than likely, yes, you could flip it, but more than likely a tear down. Let's see the days on market. Oh, right here. This property's best use case most likely be a tear down build. Okay, perfect. So this is basically a land. All right, let's go call developers in Austin. Hey, you looking for, some land to build on? You have to tear it down, but if we can get it at the right price and connect the dots, be that deal connector between, a developer and that homeowner, sweet, awesome. 136 days. So I just clicked on 3 properties. All of them are over 90 days. You will have to, follow up with these people, which I think is going to be one of the underrated things that people will miss out on. So what I would do is start up a Google Sheets and create like a mini CRM. And again, this is keeping it simple. You don't need to go out and get a CRM and focus your time on building that out. Like you could do this from Sheets to get started, right? You could title this whatever your company's name is, your seller leads, and then real quick, what I would want to collect is seller name, seller phone, address, and then our 4 pillars, right? What is the condition? And when you're talking about condition, always checking in the high ticket items, the roof, the AC, the water heater, electrical and plumbing, all that good stuff. What is their reason for selling is going to be super important. Timeline. And in my opinion, these timeline and reason for selling kind of go hand in hand, which we'll get into like our rating system in a second. Motivation. Oh, we already got that. And their price. I always have a follow-up date. So let's do this. We'll do last call, next call. You need to set a follow-up date. That's the most important part, in my opinion, is always having a next call date. We'll have a rating system, which is just going to be, hot, warm, cold. And then this is just going to be notes from your call. So right here, this is like super simple. This is really all you would need to get going, right? I'm going to come in here. And again, you don't need any skip tracing to do this Zillow stuff, right? All right, let's call this person. Sweet. Their phone number is right here. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to go pull the address, put it through a skip tracer, pay money to have it. Their rating numbers are on here, which is, again, why I like to work with people like this. Because, again, I know they want to sell. They have the property listed. So if I can go connect the dots, usually they'll be happy. So I'm going to fill out all their information here, condition of their property, what is the reason for selling, their timeline. And as I mentioned, I think reason for selling and timeline had to go in hand for the rating, right? You can't force someone to sell their property. So if I have somebody that wants to sell ASAP and they are in foreclosure, okay, that's going to be a hot lead, right? They're in foreclosure. They have to sell. They want to get out. That's where timeline matches up. If it's someone that is, in the next 6 months and they're downsizing, right? Okay, this one to me isn't going to be highly motivated. This is probably going to be a cold and warm depending on your conversation. So like I'd probably put that as cold, to be honest. And again, this temperature will kind of, cater on how quickly we should follow up. This foreclosure one, I'm going to follow up with them every day if I need to. Make sure when you're ending your calls with their sellers, you're setting a next steps. Hey, can I call you tomorrow to check back in on that process or whatever they need to go do? Something like this. Okay, cool. It sounds like, you don't want to sell for the next 6 months. You're downsizing. Is it okay if I follow up with you in the next 30 days to see if anything changes? Because right now, it's not going to work. So always setting, a rating system, but most importantly, in my opinion, is going to be, that next call date, because you need to follow up with these people. Motivations change, right? This downsizing person, they may not have told you, but maybe they are in foreclosures. Maybe they're struggling to keep up with their payments at the moment, and they're just kind of afraid to talk about it. So that's why you're always going to want to follow up, because situations change over time. Maybe that motivation becomes something a little bit higher. Yeah, the reason for selling. I was going to say, why isn't motivation here? But it's right there. So follow up is going to be underrated thing that you're going to have to do. Keep track of all your sellers, everyone you're talking to. And same thing, I'd add a buyers on here, right? So we could have a sellers, we could have a buyers. Their name, where are they buying? So this is basically setting up a mini CRM for you at the moment. And even before that, let's add their contact information. What is their exit strategy? Are they a flipper? Are they a buy and hold? We need to know what they are, how they exit, exactly how I was showing you on the Zillow. Some of those are going to be for Airbnb and rentals. Others are going to be for developers. So how are they buying, or how are they exiting their properties? I like to know their financing too. Are they cash, or are they hard money, or are they actually closing with financing? The reason that's going to matter, and again, not too important right now, but all right, if you're going to a seller saying, hey, I'll give you a cash offer and we'll close in 30 days, and this person has to go get financing for it, usually that timeline's not going to, line up. Phone number, where they're buying, exit strategy, their financing, and the same thing, I like to add a rating system here. I like to have a VIP, A, B, C. VIP meaning, we've worked with them before. A meaning they're a big player in the market. Maybe they're doing, 20 to 30 properties a year. B, maybe they're doing, anywhere from 5 to 10. And then, C, they're not doing deals right now or something like that. So that's kind of how I keep track of my buyers and my sellers. All right, jump back on here. So I showed you guys how to go through Zillow. Filter for sale by owner, FSBO is what that's called. On here though, owner posted. So next is going to be the follow-up. And as I mentioned, most deals don't come from a yes. They're going to come from a no, not yet. Situations change, jobs change, life changes, and that's why every lead needs to have a follow-up task. Follow-up isn't complicated, but it does get neglected by a lot of people. So making sure we have that task on there to know when to follow up. Set a follow-up date. All right, cool. And then the last thing to kind of wrap things up, kind of the timeline, right? If you were to follow these steps, if you were, starting from the top up here, if you are going to have that, again, goal is to get that closed deal. If you're going to learn those skills, you're going to absorb yourself into this industry by watching some YouTube podcasts, joining Facebook groups, school communities, Reddit pages, attending local meetups. And you have that mindset of all right, I'm going to be a deal connector, finding buyers in your market to see what lines up. And then next, finding that property, again, going on Facebook groups, marketplaces to find that JV opportunity. And while you're also doing that, going to that for sale by owners on Zillow and giving them a call. And again, playing that deal connector, making sure you're following with their leads. In my opinion, a timeline for a closed deal, maybe not necessarily a closed deal, but at least a contract at minimum, it's going to be 30 to 60 days. It's not going to be easy. It won't be comfortable. And you're really going to have to work hard to make this happen. There is wholesaling. It is a very low barrier of entry to getting into the industry. But a lot of people don't pan out because they don't have the discipline to do this stuff day in and day out. And the big thing, you only lose in business when you quit. Let me say that again. You only lose in business when you quit. In wholesaling, we don't get paid for effort. We get paid for solving problems. So we got to go out there, have real conversations, solve real problems, and I promise you'll make money in this industry. All right. And with that, I'm going to wrap up this video. And as always, if you have questions, feel free to shoot me a DM, drop me a comment here. I am always open to help people. So thank you for stopping by.